State of Decay 3 has been in development since late 2018, and with no official release date yet, I'm left with nothing but hopeful wants and imaginations of what State of Decay 3 could offer whilst watching the 2020 trailer on loop. Having recently jumped back into the moreishly addictive State of Decay 2 and still struggling to walk away, I decided to whip together 10 hopeful wishes of things I'd love to see in State of Decay 3. Number 1. Improved co-op. The one concrete thing that improves on most survival experiences is playing with your mates, working together, collectively gathering resources and finding the necessary means to staying alive. The co-op in State of Decay 2 is extremely basic and only really offers a partner as backup, bringing in one of the survivors from their community and simply helping smash the host's zombies to bits. Don't get me wrong, this is still so much fun, but I'd love to see a little more communal actions, helping and having more of an involvement with the base building side of things, maybe even allowing friends to set up a temporary base of their own. The tether between the host and other players can be limiting at times, which is fair enough considering the co-op is P2P based, but I'm really hoping that State of Decay 3 moves over to a server-based co-op system. I'd love to have that freedom to have my mate head out and scout and loot various places at one end of the map while you do the same in another. It's exactly what real survivors would do in that situation and would add so much more immersion. Number 2. More production value in the story. One thing survival games always lack or never seem to do that well is incorporating a meaningful story into the world that you're trying to survive in. State of Decay 2 actually did this pretty well, with an impressive amount of dialogue in the standard mode and a wide enough variety to the questing that it takes a huge amount of game time before you notice the repeating nature of them. Then of course the story mode, Heartland, it took it to another level, adding a stronger overarching plotline, but it was all done in the game engine, which made it feel like a giant side quest to me. This probably seems a little bit greedy and it probably isn't most people's priority, but personally I'd love to see more cinematic other than the ones that simply bookended the Heartland story. I'm not asking for a Hideo Kojima style weeks worth of cutscenes, but something a little more noteworthy, marking milestones in your progression throughout the story. I think if the trailer is anything to go by, Undead Labs may be putting a little bit more focus on the lore side of things too. Number 3. More freedom in the base building. Again, I actually enjoy the base building in State of Decay 2, but it's entirely bound to a menu system of which we can see the automated procedure of a structure being built after the click of a button. I would love to see a whole new free-form mechanic where players can truly create bases of their own, engaging hundreds of hours into my base like I did in Fallout 4, The Forest or Subnautica, just to name a few. I understand base building can be extremely taxing and big bases can tank your performance when adding tons and tons of assets, so I don't imagine building obscene 20-story towers would be a goer, but a little more freedom would be nice. Maybe even having it as optional so you could choose to stick with the traditional State of Decay 2 system, but personally I'd at least prefer the freedom to create the structures from a set number of materials, or even if they're templates, let me place them where I want to so I can feel a little more creative and proud of the base that I've built. Number 4. Improve the driving. Now, the driving in State of Decay 2 just isn't that fun, and as I mentioned in the 2020 review of State of Decay 2, I think that Undead Labs tried to alleviate this by letting us smash a zombo's face in by swinging my car door open as I drove by. The fun of this didn't last that long though. I still want to have to maintain my cars, upgrade their defences and keep the fuel topped up, but I hope the mechanics of physically driving the cars themselves are improved. In fairness, they all felt different from each other in State of Decay 2, but none of them felt fun or responsive enough to control, like banging quick U-turns, drifting around a hairpin, no wheel spinning or spinning out of control when heading off-road. The journeys from A to B became so simple and became pretty tedious once you'd learned the roads of the map. Definitely an area I'm hoping will be improved in State of Decay 3. Number 5. More character customization. Undead Labs did a pretty solid job of handing us these procedurally generated characters to control, with each being unique in their style and abilities. We can change their clothes with clothing that we can find out and about when on a supply run, but that's about it. I'd like to mess around with characters a little bit more, possibly changing their hairstyles, or could the clothes we find maybe have a stat buff associated with them, rather than simply just being cosmetic. Maybe keeping their hygiene levels up would would be cool too, and this could affect their morale and others' morale so the rest of the community don't have to put up with their stank. Number 6. Relationship building. Undead Labs dabbed with this a little in State of Decay 2. Whenever a quest would start, we'd be given conflicting advice from 2 survivors and we could choose who to listen to. This never really amounted into enough of an impactful choice that would see genuine long-term ramifications. I want to see the subtle choices we make have more meaning within the group, maybe even include romance options. Could you manufacture a love triangle which divides your group entirely? Could a happy couple perform that much better out in the world thanks to the content lives that they've got with one another? Or could the loss of a loved one have devastating effects where their stats receive a long-term debuff while they deal with the depression and grief of a lost loved one? Number 7. More enemy variety. Again, I like the variety that's already here, and I think there's a big clue in the State of Decay 3 trailer that there will be more enemy variety because of this mutated deer screeching before the trailer cuts short. I think the addition of mutated wildlife would be cool, but this would also kill off the option to add wildlife hunting for meat and skins. The infected roaming every inch of the map means it makes no sense to have some non-mutated wildlife and some mutated wildlife. We could possibly see the addition of children zombies, which isn't exactly original, but I loved the imagination behind the plague hearts. I'd welcome a rare and difficult enemy that's a little more abstract and original in design rather than always opting for the humanoid version of enemies. Number 8. Improved traversal. One thing that always did my nut in when playing State of Decay 2 was climbing over obstacles, some of which you would turn into an Olympic gymnast and vault over a 10-foot fence, and other walls that barely made it past my knees would be the equivalent of the Berlin Wall. Even rocky terrain was so random in areas where I could sprint up and others I just couldn't. I really don't want to see an Assassin's Creed level of parkour or anything like that, but a much needed improvement to simply interacting with the walls, fences and terrain, that would be nice. Number 9. Now this is an obvious one and one that you can almost guarantee will happen, the visuals. There wasn't anything drastically wrong with State of Decay 2 and more so with the performance in its early days, and since the February Field of View update we've seen a graphical overhaul to the maps, which is another indication of Undead Labs' intent to make their franchise look a little prettier. State of Decay 2 feels a little wooden even after the update, and tiny details like swaying grass, clutter and particle effects to name a few can make the world of difference and make it all feel so much more atmospheric. And finally, number 10, PvP. I know this is technically part of the co-op section, and whether State of Decay 3 would be P2P or server-based will be a factor too, but you can't pretend it wouldn't be awesome to invade or be invaded by another player to fight it out or have some valuable loot on the line. Adding a risk and reward system where you could choose to invade, maybe you have plenty to gain but even more to lose. Whether you'd be able to bring members of your community with you when invading, and whether your whole squad is at risk of being completely wiped out or just a few members if you lose the fight, I don't know. I'll admit this one is a bit of a stretch. It'd be complex and nearly impossible to implement without uprooting the core mechanics of the base game, but hey, I can dream. So that's my 10. What do you guys want to see most in State of Decay 3? Let me know down in the comments if you agree with some or all of my 10, or do you think I'm asking way too much of Undead Labs here, and is it just pure unrestricted gaming gluttony? Either way, I hope you've enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one.